So yeah.
Yeah,
Anyways,
looks good on my end.
perfect. The dog training is going well. She's a champ, but like I said, she's all drugged up from vaccines today, so she is passed out right beneath my feet. So
Yeah,
which hopefully she rebounds pretty quickly from that. But we'll see. Maybe just give her a day of rest.
not even. She'll be just fine.
Yeah, but anyways, one of the things I wanted to save for this was what I did today for my workout for my left knee.
Yeah.
So I'm continuing to hit upper body really hard, and there's like I forget what it is, but it's almost like a decline chest press machine, but you lie flat, but the handles come really close like this. I don't know what the name of it is called. I can get about 3 plates on there on both sides, and I'm like, I don't think this is like a true 315, like a bench press 315. But like in my head, I'm like, we're getting there. We're getting to the 315 mark that we set out to do. And then for the knee though, yesterday was 3 weeks out to the day. Today I did Peterson squats on a Bosu ball. I did 40 pounds of single leg knee extension, single leg RDLs, and then I did some like plyometric, like bounding back and forth, going single leg to single leg. And the knee's been feeling really good with it. So I'm pretty pumped. I'm hoping next week maybe even try a little treadmill workout or something and see how it feels with more of a repetitive task.
Yeah, I'm really surprised at how quickly you're getting better.
It's
Given the mechanism
so
of injury, the immediate inflammatory response, I was a little concerned that you were going to be on a longer path. I mean, and you still might have some issues, but right now it's going pretty great.
Yeah, first 2-3 days I couldn't put any weight on it. Like it was like non-weight bearing. The knee swelled up. The mechanism of injury was clearly there. Like the sports med doc was like, I'm fairly certain you tore your meniscus. And I never did get that MRI to confirm that it is, but like everything, like the clinical prediction rule for meniscus tear, like I checked like 3 or 4 out of those boxes. And so it's like, it's a high likelihood that I did, but it must have just been in the right spot so that after the initial inflammatory phase went down, now it's just, it's just chilling. Just can't overdo it.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing it right. Just slowly and steadily adding some more. And you've got a lot of good stress in your life right now. That's probably helping a little bit. You training your puppy.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone knows that you have a little puppy yet.
Yeah. If anyone watched, I did a Instagram live last night to like update people on the knee injury. So for those of you who watched that, I mentioned her. But yeah, so Willie is a 3-month-old American Bulldog, American Shepherd mix. And when I went to the vet today, actually, the vet said, she was like, oh yeah, labs have a tendency to overeat. I was like, a lab? I'm like, she's a Bulldog Shepherd, what are you talking about? And she's like, really? She's like, her coat just looks so much like a chocolate lab. She's like, I think she might be chocolate lab. And I'm like, that would be kind of cool, I guess, but I don't know.
I mean, the coat plus the ears, plus sort of the facial structure looks more like a Shepherd or a lab, but yeah, like who freaking knows? You're going to find out more over time.
Right. So, so she's just chilling, just hanging out. Things are going pretty well. So
yeah, good. Yeah, good things on your end for sure.
Good things. But what about you, Christian? Anything new in your life?
I am very much so enjoying my deload week from training, and so I've worked out once this week, and it was for like 45 minutes, and it was awesome. I've just been the last 2 days hiking in the woods a lot with Bruiser, just exploring, and that's really it for training. I'll probably train a little bit tomorrow, but then next week I'll start my next program.
Nice.
Yep.
There you go.
Other than that, the only cool thing that happened was I was asked by UNE to stay on as a adjunct professor for next year, which is really cool because it's going to be year-round, not just one semester. So I'm pretty excited to stay a part of that and hopefully one day work my way into a part-time or full-time job with them.
Yeah. Heck yeah, dude. That's freaking sweet. Look at you. Moving up in the world, man.
Professor Jorns.
Professor Jorns. God, it has a good ring to it. God, it's good. No, dude, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. So today, last episode was you interviewing me on concussion rehab, and today we're going to flip the script. I'm going to interview you on some programming principles.
Yeah, this one, dude, you had some really good questions. This one might be a 2-parter.
All right,
I will do my best to keep it succinct.
I saw the document after I posted the questions. Like 8 goddamn pages. Jesus
is it 8?
Christ.
Oh, yeah, it is 8. It is 8. Yep.
It'll be a 2-parter. That's okay. So anyways, so that's what we're going to do today. Talk more on like the fitness side of things versus like rehab stuff, which I think will be interesting because we do a lot of rehab talk on here, which is important and majority what we do with our profession. But there is also this side of it. And I don't want it to get lost that I believe that to be a really good PT, you need to understand some of these strength and conditioning principles because a lot of what we do is exercise. And if we can't prescribe the right exercise, proper dosing, proper volume, proper movement, progression, etc., and then what we do as clinicians might not be as good as what we want it to be.
Yeah, and especially if we're in the performance space. It's one thing if your population is mainly like 40 plus, not really athletic, they're just your typical people. You probably don't need to know much about strength and conditioning to be a successful physical therapist. In fact, you don't. You can do all right.
Yeah.
But we're in the business of providing high quality performance therapy, and we also like to learn about this stuff. I write my own programs myself. I'm sure you do for you. You know, if you want to take your clinical skills and your training to the next level, it's imperative that you understand these things. And so it's been a many years journey for me to learn more about this, and I'm always learning, but I have a decent grasp, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I think so. I would say so. For someone who you were a bio major in undergrad, weren't you?
Molecular and cellular biology. Yeah. Didn't learn a lick of this stuff until I got out of physical therapy school.
There you go. Dude, self-taught, man. Self-taught. Yeah, which is different from me. I was like kinesiology, strength and conditioning, like learned a lot of this stuff in undergrad, which really helped me. And so, but that just goes to show there's two different ways to do it, right? If you're looking to get into PT, you don't need to be some strength and conditioning whiz, you know, in order to understand this stuff. You can learn it on your own. There's so many good resources out there that I know you use and I use, podcasts, articles, etc., that you can learn from.
Yep. And then just getting your hands dirty. That's the biggest thing, which we'll probably get into.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, if people want to count along at home, I have 12 questions for Christian. So this will probably be a long one. So let's get into it. So first off, Christian, from a 10,000 foot view, what does strength and conditioning mean to you?
I like to think of strength and conditioning as creating the conditions for success. You are trying to prepare your body to thrive under the stresses that you intend to impose upon it, whether that's going to be a sport as a high school athlete, or that's going to be a new or young parent, or someone older who wants to take care of their yard and make sure they can do all their chores independently and easily. You are trying to prepare your body to thrive. And that's where S&C or strength and conditioning really comes in. Now, when I think about strength, I think about it as building durability, resilience, confidence, and increasing your potential to make successful moves. Being stronger is going to afford you more opportunities to move. Conditioning is more about being able to carry out successful movement for longer with a greater chance for consistency and proper execution. In other words, it's work capacity. It's your ability to keep doing quality work for longer. Both of these are critically important for you to be successful in whatever you want to do.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Yeah, I like that. Creating that environment to be successful in whatever it is. So, next question. I know we program for just about anybody. I want to preface this.
At least for now.
At least for now. Yeah. Catch us in a couple of years. We might tell you to.
Yeah.
But,
here's someone who's better for you than us.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll program for anyone. So if you're listening to this and you want something and we don't talk about that, we'll do it. But who are your favorite like demographic or sport or group of people to program for?
For me, it's less so an age or a sport. It's actually a mindset. I find that I enjoy programming for people more so when we're like-minded. So people that care about doing something really well. They take a lot of pride in their work. They're intentional. They're thoughtful. They're purposeful people, or at least they aspire to be. They're trying to be on that path of being more intentional. They're trying to reclaim their body thoughtfully and with purpose. I like those people. Also, I like working with people that enjoy having a personalized plan. They don't want a cookie cutter thing. They don't want something that their friend did. They want something that's made for them right now, and I'm all for that. I also like working with folks that are interested in barbells and dumbbells. If you think calisthenics are your thing, I think that's cool. I support you, but I'm probably not going to enjoy writing that stuff for you as much as I am someone that wants to do back squats and deadlifts and clean and jerk, etc.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
All the good stuff. Yeah. And then also people that just really want to change something about their body, whether it's strength, it's some kind of performance aspect, or some kind of physique thing. They have these clear goals about what they want to do, and then also to prevent injury. If you put all those different things I said together, that's sort of my ideal avatar that I want to work with. And then I think the whole motivation for me around like-minded people comes from empathy, or at least it maximizes empathy, in that the more similar we are, the more shared life experiences that we have, the same struggles, or at least I've been in that position before, the more easily I can put myself in your shoes, and I'm better in tune with how a program that I write or we write together will work out for you and help you reach your goals.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I did not, to be fair, I didn't read your answers. So I don't know what you're going to say. Yeah. That one caught me off guard. I was thinking you're going to say like Olympic lifters or like rock climbers or, something like a specific thing. But no, the whole idea of like working with people that have a mindset of like, let's get it. Like that's a really good one.
Yeah, that comes from years of working with all sorts of different personalities, and after many years of experience, you begin to get a sense of what kind of people are the most rewarding for you to work with, who works with your personality the best. And I think it's really important as a client and a practitioner to recognize that about yourself. What are your biases? What are your preferences? And I can't help everyone, or at least I can try, but I'm not the best person for everyone out there. It's just not possible. And so you got to figure out what's your niche. And for my niche, I like-minded people. But if you like rock climbing, you like Olympic weightlifting, I mean, it's even more my niche. That's better.
It's even better. Now we're hitting our stride. All right. Next one. So for loading terminology. So when we talk about loading terminology, we throw out a bunch of different stuff like percent one rep max, sets, reps, volume, load together, all those different things, right? So in terms of the terminology basis, what do you find to be the most important when it comes to manipulating some of that for a program, whether it's to progress the program or regress the program?
Yeah, without getting into too many terms, I do want to define two. So volume is your sets times your reps, and volume load is your sets times your reps times your weight. The number one thing that I'll look at for a beginner to intermediate, I'm not talking about elite athletes, that's a whole different conversation, but beginner to intermediate, that's going to be volume. If I feel like you're not making the kind of progress that you need to make, I'm going to up your volume. And usually I'm going to do it by adding a set, not adding a couple extra reps or two. And it's just because when you think about the drivers of adaptation, at least the best drivers of adaptation, it really comes down to the more work you do, the more volume you do in general, the better results you're going to get. And so if I have to do one thing to get someone better, or if someone's really overreaching and I want to make their program a little bit easier so they get more time to recover, I'm going to probably change a set. One set up, one set down. That's the short answer. The longer answer is going to be adjusting volume load. And so the way we adapt, let's say strength, is going to be by doing more work over time, adding more stress to your body over time. You can do that by adding sets, adding reps, or adding weight, or some combination of those three. For some people, it's better to adjust the load more so than the volume, like the sets or the reps. The problem with adjusting load for a beginner to intermediate is that a lot of them don't know what load is. They don't know how hard they're working. They don't know what real hard work is. All they know is whatever they like to do, whatever they feel is hard, and they might know absolute failure. It takes a long time as a trainee to get really in tune with the different difficulty levels of loading. So let's say 60% of your one rep max, 90%, or what we typically use, Eric, is going to be RPE or RIR, so rating of perceived exertion, or reps in reserve. Those are forms of auto or self-regulation. Mm-hmm. That stuff just takes a lot of practice. And so adjusting load for people, to answer your question, isn't always the best bet for me. In my experience, just changing volume tends to work a lot better. It's easier for me. It's a more reliable way for me to know that I'm making a meaningful change to your plan than going from a 7 RPE to an 8 RPE. That sometimes can be meaningless to people.
No, it's a really well thought out answer there. And that's a loaded question. I think we could go on for a long time about that, but I think that was laid out pretty well there. And we'll get into what an RPE is later on. And we'll discuss that. And I know even like for myself, if I'm working out, I would say that I know when it comes like a back squat, like I kind of know when I'm doing a weight, I can kind of self adjust in the time of like, okay, I want to do X amount of reps at this intensity, but that last set, that really felt more like up like at like an 8 or a 9 RPE, right? It's like, dang, if I want to do this many reps over the next several sets, we might have to adjust the weight a little bit for the proper RPE, you know? So I know like in real time, I'll do that often with like all my workouts, kind of adjusting the RP for whatever that goal is. And I'd really try and communicate that when I'm with patients, right? You know, you kind of ask them like, how hard does this feel? Or because we're not doing 1 rep max tests on all our patients before we do every single exercise. So you have to find a way to adjust in real time so that you're not under or overloading for whatever that desired goal is.
Yeah, and that takes a lot of experience to be able to do pretty well. When I say a lot of experience, I mean like 2 to 3 years of training really hard, making a lot of mistakes. You
Oh
need to
yeah.
know what it's like to max out. You need to know what it's like to max out and fail here and there.
Yep.
And you need to know what it's like to train too hard for too long. I think when you make those mistakes, you learn a lot. Hopefully you don't get hurt, but like I thankfully have done that more than once, and I've learned the value of being more mindful of your auto regulation. That stuff is critically important to being successful.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Kind of like a funny quick story for me, how I learned it really well was I was in undergrad and I was doing Olympic weightlifting and I was doing like heavy front squats, like sets of like 2 or 3 front squats, right? And this was like my second to last set, I think. And on the third rep coming up, I got this like intense headache right there. It just like came on out of nowhere. I'm not truly certain what happened, but I was reading up and then like there's a term called like exercise induced migraines where like you have like so much pressure from like a Valsalva maneuver where you can cause, because there's only so much space in the brain, that you can cause something like a migraine to occur from that. And I don't know if that's really true now that I'm learning more about migraines as a vestibular therapist, and migraines are much more than just vessels and pressure. Anyways, going away from that, that sucked. And that took me like a couple of weeks to like recover from, because anytime I would go like higher intensity, that headache would come back. And so that like whenever I lift now, I'm always like, all right, am I about to hit a point where my brain is just going to tell me to shut off? Or because like for me, like that's my 10. Like I could go any harder there. And so you're right, it does take a lot of experience, personal experience. And unfortunately, you go too hard and you might pull a muscle, or in my case, freaking burst a blood vessel or something. I don't know. But
Yeah, or have a stroke.
or
But
have a stroke or
for me, it was thankfully not like that. It was more, I was trying to progress my back squat. And
Mhm.
for, I want to say it was 5 weeks of a 16-week program, I did not add any extra weight to the bar on my back squat. I just kept hitting the same weight for the same sets and reps, and it felt harder and harder each week. That is how you know you are overtraining.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so eventually you learn, maybe I just need to take a break
Maybe I need
and
to chill
come
out.
about this a little bit smarter. You can't
Yeah.
just expect to hit 9 RPE for 5 weeks straight and keep making progress.
Yeah. Yeah. Part of the adaptation process is the body needs rest to recover and adapt. That's for sure. Okay. Moving on. Question number 4. We kind of section out different parameters based on what the goal is, right? Strength, hypertrophy, power, endurance. Those are kind of like the main 4 that we think about. So in your mind, Christian, when you think about those 4 different terms that I just listed off, what are your goals for those different strengthening parameters in strength, hypertrophy, power, endurance?
I think the classic continuum of 1 to, let's say, 20 reps or so, where you have power is 1 to 3 or 5 reps. Strength is the same thing. Hypertrophy is somewhere like 5 to 15 or 8 to 15. That's still really good. And then anything above that's pretty much endurance. That continuum, I think, is fairly useful for most people, but it definitely is a little bit more nuanced than that. And so just to get a bit more specific with it, for power, you are going to be training in roughly the 1 to 5 rep range to truly maximize your ability to exert force very quickly. And the big thing that separates power from strength is going to be the intent and the weight of the movement, because you have to You have to move intentionally and forcefully, and you have to have that idea of exploding in your mind. Let's say it's a double leg vertical jump or a broad jump. You need to be trying to push your shoes into the floor as hard as you freaking can, because you're trying to refine neuromuscular components of your body. You aren't trying to get stronger. And so the intent of that movement is really important for power. And you're going to find that when you do power training correctly, your performance is really going to drop quite quickly, because the ability for your nervous system to get max juice out of your muscle diminishes rapidly. So you might notice in a set of 5 double leg vertical jumps that your first 1, 2, or 3, maybe 3 are pretty dang good. But then 4 and 5, you're not getting as high. That's the way it should work for training maximal power. And that's just because your nervous system is going to fatigue very quickly, and you're also going to be burning through one of your major energy substrates, which is going to be creatine phosphate.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's my thought on power, more of that 10,000 foot view. When thinking about strength, within that continuum, you're trying to lift really heavy weight, relatively heavy weight, for fewer reps. So we'll say 1 to 5 reps is a pretty good benchmark. And when I say heavy weight, the classic way to describe strength training is going to be training with 60 to 100% of your 1 rep max. If you're training below 60% of your 1 rep max, let's say it's a back squat, you're not really eliciting enough stress to your body to make appreciable strength gains, at least in a timely manner. It'd be incredibly slow. 60% is also fairly slow. 70 to 80% is the sweet spot. And if you're thinking about auto-regulation, like rating of perceived exertion or reps in reserve, you want to be training in roughly that 7 to 8 RPE or that 2 to 3 reps in reserve. That's where you're really going to get the most bang for your buck in terms of strength training. And then when thinking about knowing if you're doing strength training right, just like power, you need to have a high intentional effort when you move. If it's a back squat, you need to be trying to move that weight up out of the hole as fast as you can, because you're trying to also generate neuromuscular adaptations. It's not purely muscle changes in the fibers, it's also those nerve connections. They have to get refined to help you produce maximal force very quickly. And so proxies that you can think about to know that you're doing strength training right is going to be, you need to feel the movement slow down towards the end of your set. So if you have a set of 5 on a back squat, your first 3 reps might go up fairly comfortably and quickly, but rep 4 and 5, if you're training at a true 80% or 8 RPE, they're going to slow down a little bit. You're going to feel like it's starting to grind. You could definitely do some more, but they're going to get slower and slower. That's how you know you are training heavy enough to elicit adaptation. And also, strength training just sucks. For those of you who have never done really hard strength training, it's uncomfortable. You're straining.
It's not fun.
It is not fun, mentally and physically. When you train to, let's say, 80%, 90%, it sucks.
Yeah.
That's just the truth of it.
That's
it sucks. Go ahead.
I was going to say, when I do like heavy strength training, that is my like late 90s, early 2000s punk rock, blasted in the headphones, like just listening to, I don't know, like people probably be like, how is that strength training music to you? Like if like Blink 182 comes on, I'm like, all right, it's go time. Like that's what I know is strength training time, is just blasting that punk rock in my headphones.
Yeah, something to help you flip that switch to get you more motivated and engaged. And there's real merit to that. For me, it has been The Count of Monte Cristo on audiobook lately. That's been my go-to way to get freaking hype. Anyways, so the last thing to say about strength is that you don't need to go to failure. This is what's really cool about strength. We've done a ton of research on this. When I said 7 to 8 RPE or 70 to 80% is a sweet spot, I mean it, because if you follow an athlete out, let's say over 3 months of training, if they consistently train at 60%, they're going to make pretty good gains. If they consistently train at 70 to 80%, they'll make even better gains. If you consistently train at 90 to 100% effort for your strength, you're going to see really good gains early on, but then you're going to plummet, and you're going to end up probably making fewer gains than the 60% group. And that's just because the harder you work towards your limit, the more fatigue cost you get. It's kind of like the faster you drive your car on the highway, the worse gas mileage you get. There's a sweet spot on the highway of when you get the best bang for your buck, but you can't overreach. And that's why you don't really need to go to failure on strength. unless it's once in a while, once a month, once a training cycle, you're doing it, you want to go for a new 1RM, you like to feel some heavy weight once in a while just because you like that stuff, fine. But that shouldn't be a daily or weekly thing for you. So moving into hypertrophy, this is getting higher up in the reps. So we're going to say the true answer is 5 to 30 reps seems to be the sweet spot. But for this conversation, we'll say like 5 to 15. Generally, it's going to be closer to 8 to 15.
Yeah.
Reps in a set, doing several sets. To know that you are truly training hypertrophy well, so trying to grow your muscle, there are some proxies that you should keep in mind. You need to feel a burning in the muscle. If you feel that burn, that means that you are burning enough energy in that muscle to create metabolic stress, and it's going to force your muscle tissue to adapt. It's going to adapt by storing more glycogen. It's going to adapt by making more mitochondria, and that is going to make you, and increase vascularity, and that's going to make your muscles perform better. So a burn is a really good proxy there. You also want to feel what's called momentary muscular failure. So you want to feel, for example, in a bicep curl, as you're doing curls, towards the end of your set, let's say it's rep 12, 13, 14, 15 of a 15 rep set, you want to feel like that dumbbell is moving up slower. Maybe that last rep, you're getting pretty burnt out. You don't have to go to failure every set, kind of like strength. You want to feel like that thing is slowing down and it's getting pretty dang hard to move. You also need to feel tension in the muscle. So on a bicep curl, at the very bottom of, or like as you're lowering the dumbbell down towards that very bottom, if you don't feel anything happening in your bicep, you aren't anywhere near failure or a sufficient stress or stimulus to that muscle to make it stronger. You have to feel some level of tension to drive that adaptation. That's more for the muscle fiber growth. Muscle fibers and tendon fibers grow or adapt in response to tension. They need to feel that physical force in order to get signaled to adapt. And then I already said this one, but moving slower as the set goes on, that is how you know you're probably in the right spot.
Yep.
Now, I will say, though, for hypertrophy, going to failure is definitely useful sometimes. And I would say you can do that more often than strength training and still get a lot of good benefit. But just like strength, going to failure way too often, so like every set of every exercise, every day, you're going to pay a massive fatigue burden. You're going to get worse training results, and you're probably going to get hurt. So, and not just hurt, but like also mentally burnt out. It's not very fun to know that you have to go to the gym and just grind and hurt every single time. It's nice to know that you can still get really good results by leaving 2 reps left in the tank. You're getting close to failure, but not quite all the way there. Okay, now the last one, endurance. This is going to be, we'll say, 15 plus reps or 20 plus reps for most people. It's more or less the same as hypertrophy in my mind. The only difference is that you're going to be, because you're using lighter weights compared to hypertrophy, you're doing more reps in a set, you are driving a little bit different adaptation than hypertrophy. You're not going to be getting as much true mechanical tension in the muscle to drive muscle size growth. That's not happening as much because of that lack of tension. What you're going to be doing, though, is you're going to be getting more burn in the muscle, more just overall fatigue in the muscle, a lot of blood flow there, a lot of waste products are being made, so metabolic effects. And it's those effects that are going to lead to increased vascularization of the muscle to drive more blood flow, increased glycogen storage, and increased mitochondria production. You put all those things together, you have more ability to make energy to sustain you for longer. And so that's the whole purpose of endurance training. But because you lack the sufficient load to create enough mechanical tension, you aren't going to get the same muscle growth stimulus as you would for hypertrophy.
Yeah, awesome, man. No, yeah, I bringing back some memories, right, in terms of that continuum and kind of what each subset of lifting, I guess, goal is kind of meant for. And there's some really cool, like I see debates all the time online about what's the best way to build strength. Like 1 set of 30, 2 sets of 15, 5 sets of 6, blah, blah, blah. There's some people that would argue any of them are gonna be the same as the other. And it's kind of interesting just to like see these different debates, because if you pick up the strength and conditioning book and you read it, you're gonna see these very clear cut this is what you do for strength. This is what you do for hypertrophy. And I think there's some more research I haven't dove into myself, but just from seeing people online that we respect, it's like, okay, there's kind of up for debate a little bit on some of these things. But I think in terms of programming, like we're talking about right now, you laid it out really well. This is a good thing to go by if we're wanting to go by what's your goal, endurance, hypertrophy, etc.
Oh yeah, dude. If there were strength coaches listening to this, they're gonna be like, "No, this guy's an idiot. That's all right." It's like, no, dude. No, I know everything you're gonna be saying probably. I'm trying to give people a lay of the land. I didn't want to go into all the different dosages for each different thing, how many exercises, how many total sets per week, what rest times are. I'm not going to get into that stuff right now. We're just trying to lay the land. If you truly want to build strength, this is roughly what you should be doing. Hypertrophy, this is roughly what you should be doing. Or at least what you should be using as proxies to know that you're more likely to be successful at building those qualities. Yeah. I think a whole different podcast can be done on each one of those categories, and we certainly might do that in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I was trying to hold back laughter there because Willie was a freaking chainsaw beneath my feet, snoring away. And so I kept looking down at her and like trying to pet her, like, Willie, quiet here in the background. But now she's up and she's chewing on the straps of my backpack. So we'll just let that be for now.
Good alternative.
Good alternative, right. But yeah, anyways, no, love it. Love it. That's important to give the lay of land for people, because sometimes I feel like it seems like we're just throwing out numbers and there's no rhyme or reason to it. And, it's like, there's some rhyme and reason to it. Is there some gray area? Could those things be messed with? Absolutely. But in general, what you laid out there, I think is a good lay of the land.
When in doubt, 3 sets of 10. I love me some 3 sets of 10,
dude. People hate on that. Yeah, it's 3 sets of 10.
Oh my God, it's killer. We're so...
It's not the Antichrist. It is not the devil. We pathologize 3 sets of 10, and we're trying to rewrite the history books. And it's like, hey, why are we trying to mess with something that ain't bad? Okay, going on. So, kind of switching gears a little bit. Let's say someone comes to you, Christian, and they're like, hey, I ain't got the time and the money to go to a gym, and I'm looking just to do stuff at home, right? And they don't want to go buy a bunch of weights, blah, blah, blah. What are some of your favorite kind of go-to exercises that you can do with body weights or lighter weights for someone that could do in their living room at home?
When thinking about home exercises, the thing that I always have to make sure I address first is going to be, how are we going to progress? If you want to get stronger, you want to build certain qualities of your physique, and you have little to no equipment, we have to get pretty creative. And so I like to choose movements that have a lot of scalability and a lot of bang for your buck. So these are not going to be a surprise for anyone listening. Upper body, push-ups, any variety of push-ups, close grip, wide grip, offset grips, elevated, decline, pull-ups, chin-ups. I love band work for shoulders, arms. That's the band work is so easy to do at home. You can put bands in a door, you can have them on the floor, and they're cheap, so you can buy them relatively cheap. For lower body, for hard stuff and things that we can more easily scale, I would say Bulgarian split squats are great, pistol squats, Cossack squats, Peterson squats. Those all are going to build a lot of good leg muscle. Not just muscle, but also control, and that's really good for your injury prevention. I think plyometrics go really well in a home plan if you don't have downstairs neighbors. But things like hopping, double leg, single leg, vertical jumps, broad jumps, skier jumps, any kind of plyometric is going to be really good to improve overall performance for endurance sports such as running, but also make you better as a field sport athlete. They're also really good at increasing the elasticity of your tendons, so hopefully ward off or even improve tendinopathy. Mm-hmm. And then for cheap cardio, of course, we have walking and running, biking if you have a bike. I think hiking is great. And then swimming, if you have a local pond, lake, I'll prescribe swimming for people. I think that stuff's dope. Yeah. Now, when thinking about how to organize this stuff, it depends on what the client likes, but most clients are going to do a home plan with little to no equipment. They tend to gravitate towards supersets or circuits. So I'm going to have maybe 3 different supersets. Let's say it's going to be push-up, and jump squats, or it'll be band pull aparts and some kind of core thing. You're just making different supersets. You put those together, you got a pretty efficient workout. It's time efficient. You have little downtime with your rest, because while you're doing your push-ups, you're resting from your previous exercise that was using your legs, for example.
Yep.
Yeah, and then circuits are great too, just because you get that. If you have, let's say, 5 exercises in a row, you're just cycling through all those 5 exercises for multiple rounds each, you're getting a pretty good cardiovascular stimulus. And if you push that really hard, you're going to be probably in zone 3, maybe even zone 4. And so you're going to get some strength or hypertrophy depending on how we prescribe it, but also you're going to get some pretty good cardiovascular effect, which is just great for your overall health. Yeah. So that's sort of how I approach this plan. And I had a client recently, actually one of my coworkers. She's my age, so mid-30s, and she has 2 kids. She works full time. I think she even has a second job sometimes, and so she's strapped for time. And she's a single mom, so she wanted a plan to help her improve her pull-up strength and help her do a pistol squat, as well as do some general total body, I guess I would say hypertrophy training, just build some overall muscle tone for her. And she wanted it to be 5 days a week, and each day needed to be about 20 minutes. That was her preference. She wanted small bites of workouts that were just not going to take up all her time, but she doesn't have much time. And I was able to create a plan for her. She went from 0 pull-ups over the course of 3 months of working with her, she went from 0 pull-ups to like 8 or 9, which was honestly pretty ridiculous. I would not have expected that. She went from not being able to do even a pistol squat to a chair without feeling like she was overworking, to doing pistol squats with arm assistance, butt to ankle, for like 3 or 5 reps, something like that. Dang. And so she worked her ass off. She clearly got a lot better. And this was all with body weight and some banded work. And we made it all work within her preferences, and clearly you can get it done as long as you're consistent with it.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be done. It can be helpful and beneficial, especially for individuals who maybe they haven't trained a whole lot in their life. They just want to get started on something. Like, man, that stuff can be a home run for some people, especially when it's programmed really well, which sounds like that's exactly what happened with you and your client there with their home program.
Yeah, it worked out pretty great. For those kinds of plans where folks want to do stuff at home with minimal equipment, it's a pretty big conversation around, okay, what's fun for you? What kind of flow do you like for your exercise plan? How can we make this just more palatable for you? Because you don't have a whole lot of options, or we have to get pretty creative with what we do. And so making sure we have an open dialogue about how things are going for you, what you would like, I think that's even more important for someone that has fewer things to use.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to that circuit idea, like, I feel like sometimes people think that, like, if I'm going to do cardio, I need to be running, or I need to be on a bike, or I need to be doing the elliptical, whatever it is. Yes, when it's a prolonged duration run or something, there's different things going on. But like, the heart doesn't know that you're running. The heart doesn't know that you're biking. All the heart knows is that it needs to pump more damn blood out. And if you're doing something like a circuit with minimal rest time and you're going from lower to upper, like, it doesn't know that. And so if you can sustain a high heart rate for 20 minutes doing a circuit exercise, there's some cardio for you too. So like it can be really beneficial in that sense. You're kind of, again, for people who are strapped with time, that's 2 birds, 1 stone.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you said that really well. The heart doesn't know, doesn't care. It just knows it has to. If your goal as the client is to reap all the health rewards of doing cardiovascular training, the sky's the limit. Do whatever you want as long as you feel that work happening. If you want to become a better runner, well, yeah, we got to run.
Yeah.